Welcome to YQ Academy Core Java Interview Questions and Answers. 1. How to instantiate member inner classes. To instantiate a member inner class in Java, you need an instance of the outer class. Here's an example of how to instantiate a member inner class. In the above example, the inner class is a member inner class of outer class. To create an instance of inner class, you first need to create an instance of outer class. Once you have the outer class instance, you can create the inner class instance using the dot notation. Note that you need to use the syntax outer_obj.new inner class to instantiate the inner class, indicating that it belongs to the specific instance of the outer class outer_obj. 2. How to do encapsulation in Java. Encapsulation in Java is achieved by using access modifiers to restrict direct access to the internal state and behavior of an object. It involves bundling the data variables and methods functions together within a class and controlling their access through getter and setter methods. 1. Declare the class. Define a class and give it a meaningful name that represents the object you want to encapsulate. For example, 2. Declare private variables. Declare the instance variables of the class as private so that they cannot be accessed directly from outside the class. For example, 3. Provide public getter and setter methods. Create public methods getter and setter methods to access and modify the private variables. This allows controlled access to the internal state of the object. For example, 4. Use getter and setter methods. Access and modify the private variables of the class using the public getter and setter methods. This ensures that the data is accessed and modified in a controlled manner. For example, 3. What are reference variables in Java? Reference variable is a variable that holds the memory address reference of an object rather than holding the actual object itself. It is used to refer to objects created using the new keyword. Reference variables provide a way to access and manipulate objects in Java. 4. Will the compiler create a default constructor if I have a parameterized constructor in the class? No. If you define a parameterized constructor in a class, the Java compiler will not automatically generate a default no-argument constructor for you. A default constructor is a constructor that takes no arguments, and it is automatically generated by the compiler only if you don't define any constructors in the class. Its purpose is to provide a way to instantiate objects of the class without specifying any initial values for the instance variables. However, once you define any constructor in a class, including a parameterized constructor, the compiler assumes that you have explicitly provided the necessary constructors for object initialization. It does not generate a default constructor in such cases. If you still want to have a default constructor along with a parameterized constructor in your class, you need to explicitly define it in your code. 5. Can we have a method name same as class name in Java? Yes, in Java, you can have a method with the same name as the class name. This is known as the constructor of the class. A constructor is a special method that is called when an object of a class is created. It is used to initialize the object and perform any necessary setup or initialization tasks. The constructor has the same name as the class and does not have a return type, not even void. It is invoked using the new keyword followed by the class name and parentheses. 6. Can we override constructors in Java? Constructors are not directly overridden like regular methods. Instead, subclass constructors can invoke the constructors of the superclass using the super keyword. This is known as constructor chaining or invoking the superclass constructor. When a subclass constructor is invoked, it implicitly calls the default constructor of the superclass if no explicit call to a superclass constructor is made. If the superclass does not have a default constructor, a constructor with no arguments, the subclass constructor must explicitly call one of the superclass constructors using the super keyword. Example that demonstrates constructor chaining. In the above example, the superclass has a constructor that takes an int parameter. The subclass extends superclass and has an additional instance variable name. The subclass constructor invokes the superclass constructor using superValue, passing the value argument. 7. Can static methods access instance variables in Java? No, static methods in Java cannot directly access instance variables. Static methods are associated with the class itself rather than a specific instance of the class. They are invoked using the class name, not an instance reference. Instance variables, on the other hand, are specific to each instance of a class. They hold unique data for each object created from the class. Since static methods are not tied to a specific instance, they cannot access instance variables directly. However, if you want to access an instance variable within a static method, you can do so by providing an instance reference as a parameter to the static method. This way, the static method can operate on the specific instance passed to it. Example: in the above example, the static method takes an instance of my class as a parameter. It can then access the instance of variable of that specific instance and perform operations on it. So, although static methods cannot directly access instance variables, you can still work with instance variables by passing an instance reference as a parameter to the static method. 8. How do we access static methods in Java? 1. Class name. Method name. You can access a static method by using the class name followed by the dot operator and the method name. 2. Import static. If you have imported the static methods using the import static statement, you can directly call the method without using the class name. 9. Can we override static methods in Java? No, static methods in Java cannot be overridden. When a subclass defines a static method with the same name as a static method in its superclass, it is considered as a new method in the subclass, not an overridden version of the superclass method. In Java, method overriding is based on the runtime type of objects, and static methods are resolved at compile time based on the declared type of the reference. Since static methods are associated with the class itself rather than with specific instances of the class, they cannot be overridden in the same way as instance methods. This is the end of our Java interview questions. We hope you enjoyed learning with YQ Academy. Until next time, goodbye.